The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. You can check out Evergreen, this year's Vans snowboarding movie, at youtube.com/Vans. Season 6 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Crow's Nest Barbershops, Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC, and Stance Socks. Anon Optics make my favorite snowboarding goggles. Magnetic face masks and lenses make Anon the easiest goggles to keep unfogged. I remove the lenses without taking off my gloves and keep them dry in my jacket while I'm hiking or waiting in a lift line, and that's a game changer for me. The lens snaps back into place, staying clear even in the most challenging conditions, and the magnetic mask is easy to take on and off, making it essential for a comfortable day in the mountains. Anon goggles come in many different styles to fit many different faces. Please check out Anon at your local snowboard retailer. Support for FNRad also comes from Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, and Sun Peaks. Sun Peaks is located in the interior of BC, which is famous for light dry powder. It's Canada's second largest ski area with 4,270 acres of skiable terrain. There are 3 mountains surrounding a European-style ski-through village with 13 lifts, 138 trails, over 20 dining options, and it is the best ski-in, ski-out accommodation with no need for a car in BC. Winter activities include dog sledding, snowshoeing, and more. 37 kilometers of cross-country ski trails surround the village. And best of all, they've got uncrowded, minimal lift lines. Check out Sun Peaks for your next vacation. Leanne Pelosi is a professional snowboarder for K2 Snowboards with a long list of accomplishments, including winning Transworld's Rider of the Year Award and Influencer Award. She works with Protect Our Winters, and she started her own film company, Full Moon Films. Leanne rides for the North Face and was featured in their latest project, Facets, which showcases North Face's impressive women's snowboarding team. I reached out to Leanne at her Whistler home a couple of weeks back, and here's the interview. You ride in a big crew a lot of the time.
Usually you just show up to Seymour and everybody's there always, so.
Well, I remember you guys riding a big crew at Whistler, too. I'm like, wow, that is a lot of people to keep track of.
I feel like I generally just go to the hill with the crew in my house, and then it just explodes from there. That's the beauty of living in a mountain town where it's a small community. Everybody kind of naturally gets together.
How long have you been up in Whistler?
I was living in Whistler I moved here in 2003. I also moved down to Vancouver for I think 2008 till 2000 and I don't know, 10 years I was in Vancouver.
Oh, wow.
But Vancouver in the summers, Whistler always in the winters.
Okay. Yeah, it's too much to drive from Vancouver to go do a day if you're riding 5 days a week or whatever.
Yeah, that's south traffic. It's tough to deal with these days.
It sucks. And you're still with Jeff? You guys have been together for a long time.
Forever.
Are you married now, or are you engaged still?
We're still engaged.
Oh my God.
We've been engaged for almost 5 years.
Okay.
And we have Jeff proposed to me in the backcountry on my birthday 5 years ago, and it's coming up, and now we call it Engagement Hill. So every time we're in the Rutherford, Marie France was there, and it was the first day of our filming, and he's like, "Oh, this is Engagement Hill now."
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite interviews I've done. He's just such a
Jeff's been so passionate about snowboarding forever, and I learned so much from him. He's my mountain man.
The Shorty's Instagram just posted his skids part, and I was like, whoa, wait, what? He was like, I didn't ever think of him as being one of those insane partier kids, but I guess
I know. He was
cringing
days. When that came out yesterday. He was like, oh, and then I was like, what? Let me watch this. And then I called him out. I was like, oh, the party days of Jeff, back in the days of the skids. That was when I was just getting to know him. And I was like, not really into the whole relationship thing because I just thought he was such a party boy. And then
Oh my God.
he's not at all anymore.
Right. He knows how to have a good time. Like every time I see him, for any extended period of time right now, it's at like the Bake Sam and he's busy, right? Like he puts his heart and soul into that. But this isn't an interview about him. You have a long and lucrative career. So you moved to Whistler directly from Calgary. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you were already graduated from university at that point?
Yeah. But I went to Camp of Champions when I was 18. My parents were like, this is your graduation present. We've saved up for the last decade for you to do this. And so
Nice.
Go have fun. And I went and I didn't want to go back home.
Of course.
I begged Ken Achenbach if I could stay and get a job. And then I ended up getting a job there, working as the lunch girl. And then that's how I met Jeff. Jeff was working at the Option Snowboards tent and we just became kind of like friends at that point. So I met Jeff a long time ago. And then I continued to go back to university and finish that. Right? There was no way my parents were going to let me move out west without finishing school. So
yeah. And then did you ever end up using your school?
I mean, I can't tell you what I really learned other than like commitment.
Right.
Confidence,
yes.
All those life skills that you learn in school don't really have much to do about the subject, but they give you these like important values that you can carry on. So I think with snowboarding, it helped me later down the line with like the film projects and such.
How early into your career out here? Actually, let's go back to the beginning. Who's your first sponsor?
K2 was my first sponsor.
Oh, dope.
Yeah.
And how do you link that up?
I moved to Whistler and I had a sponsor me tape that like I just went to Blackcomb Park with my roommates. We moved into a house. I was sleeping on a recliner chair.
Oh my God.
And there was like 5 of us in like a 2-bedroom condo or something like that. It's just what you do when you move to Whistler.
Yeah.
Living on a university budget.
Mm-hmm.
And we would just go out in the park and film each other. And I put a sponsor me video up on snowboard.com.
Oh, wow.
And then like Bobby Meeks and Corey Grove saw it. And then Bobby messaged me.
Damn.
And was like, what do you think about riding for K2? And I was like, I don't even think this is the real Bobby Meeks. Hold on. So actually K2 ended up sending me a contract in the mail with 2 snowboards. And I had just blown my knee, but I signed the contract. And I was too scared to tell them because it was a dream come true. And so then they were like, the first trip, they were like, oh, we're going to take you to this contest called the band's Triple Crown. And they got me a spot into like the rail jam or slopestyle or something. And I was so nervous and I was just mentally preparing myself to compete. And I got there and I was so freaked out to hit a jump because it was the first jump since getting the knee surgery and everything. And I told Kim Bonsack, she was a pro snowboarder who was married to the team manager of K2. And I confided in her and told her I was a little too scared because I had just blown my knee and I felt really bad that I didn't tell them that I signed the contract before I blew my knee. And they were like, oh, it is totally okay. Like, you should have told us. Like, it's totally fine. We would have supported you. But I was just so nervous to lose that opportunity. So
yeah, no shit. How does it work? Is it someone said that it's in their contract? Like if they can't ride, the contract is kind of done, right? Like so that's like you could sign a contract that says, hey, if I get hurt, well, I take it on myself that if I can't ride, then I'm of no value to this company or blah, blah, blah. Like that seems insane to me.
I think like in my contracts, there's something, maybe back in the day, there'd be something like if you can't ride for more than 6 months, then they can, cancel the contract. And the thing with blowing your knee, it's a 6-month recovery minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that is one of those injuries that could like discontinue a contract. But in general, like most companies are pretty supportive. We all know that action sports is like a pretty high, like an intense sport.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're pushing it or doing like, you can do the silliest thing and hurt yourself. But I don't know. I think it's important to support the athletes that are putting it all on the line and getting hurt, and also supporting them back to a healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. I just remember something about Cersei Wallace suing. I think it was Ride. I think during her like ride days, she got hurt and they were like, oh, okay, well, we're moving on to the next person. And she's like, no, I have a contract. And she sued for the rest of the contract and won, which is awesome.
Good for her.
Yeah. She's a very strong person in the industry.
She's an inspiration because, she sticks up for yourself. Like,
yeah,
it's important to have those skills when you're dealing with some big companies. It can get scary.
Yeah, I think she was probably the first woman snowboarder to have to deal with actual money in a contract. Her boots sold so much.
Yeah. I remember I was actually the first pair of snowboard boots I bought myself were Cersei Wallace Vans boots.
Yeah.
And they were like a white with like swirly blue.
Yep. Yeah, they were sick.
I thought it was so cool that there was some women's product out there, but it was few and far between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was in it. That for those years working at a shop, we would get as much women's product as we could because women didn't want to ride men's big, giant, ugly shit. And if you were smart, like if you were a smart company, you didn't make it too girly. You made it like fit women, but like it could pass as men's stuff if you had to, Yeah,
because the style is pretty baggy back in the day.
Yes.
But there was I really did appreciate the feminine vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon Dunn had that snowboard with the sunflower on it.
Yep.
I wanted that snowboard so bad I never got it. But.
That's rad. Yeah. It's super strange to think of a time before there was women's specific gear. Like all the girls had to wear guys' boots. Think of how lame that is.
I know.
Unbelievable. So yeah, we everybody owes Cersei a big. She and Shannon Dunn and Tina and all the girls that stuck it through, in spite of it being a male dominated sport.
Yeah, it's
strange that we pat ourselves on the back so much for being inclusive as a community. It's like yeah, women are 20% of the sales. You're like 20%. They're 50% of the people on the planet. What the hell is going on?
Yeah, I think that number is bigger now. Good. But we have a long way to go in action sports and inclusivity, gender, diversity, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the brand's responsibility to create that opportunity for the people.
I agree. Yeah. I think what Jess Camara is doing with the Uninvited and bringing attention to the fact that, look, girls were not brought on the trips, not on the big trips, not where it really counted. Yeah. And that's not fair because it isn't fair. Like it's so self-obvious. Like if you don't have the opportunity to go huge, then you just don't.
Yeah, it's true. And I think, what Jess is doing it's such a thankless job. And I'm so inspired by all of her actions over the last few years of giving back when she couldn't, step on a snowboard because she was injured or whatever. Like This is the best way to transfer her energy and showcase, a platform for other women she was uplifting these other women. And there's like reciprocity in that. It probably made her feel really good.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's inspiring for all of us to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to give back. And actually, like with Full Moon, we had raised some money at some events and we were able to pay it forward and pay for the Whistler premiere for Jess's movie.
Oh,
for the
dope.
uninvited first. Yeah.
Good.
It was really sweet.
Yeah, that's super good. So how far back do you guys start the Full Moon thing? Because you started your own filming company like almost right away, right?
Yeah, like 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always inspired by watching movies first and foremost. Getting into the competition world for me was a door that opened that I just went through, but I was always inspired by the filmmaking side of snowboarding.
Mm-hmm.
That was, to me, the most influential part of it. So the minute I had the opportunity to start something, I actually started Runway Films with Jeff.
Yeah.
And we made 2 movies, and it was awesome. And then it kind of created some opportunities for the women to step into standard films and Absinthe. There was a little run with that with Marie and Annie and Absinthe, and me and Hannah and standard films.
Rad.
Aaron Comstock. Yeah. And then finally I just wanted to, I found that like between all of the women in snowboarding and backcountry, we had such a strong crew of women, but it seemed like there was no media space for the backcountry side of women. It was almost like a forgotten part of the sport. And so this one day we were just all having dinner. And I said, I feel like we kind of like all together came up with the idea, what if we all work together? It was like the first time that we could even talk about that. And everybody was in agreement. So Full Moon.
That's so dope.
Part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes off pretty much right away, right? Like you guys did you start at that moment filming for the project, or was it just sort of like a fun group to be a part of and then the movie came later?
No, I bought a GH4 camera.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I'm going to start this film no matter what.
Cool.
And I didn't really have that many like personal filming skills. I was just like, I really want to tell the story about how we're all connected. And so I started doing interviews. Like, I'm so gutted because I did a few interviews with some pioneers in the sport with my GH4, and I totally screwed up the audio.
Yep.
One of those being Natasha Zurich. Like, I wish she had a voice in that film, but I just didn't really know what I was doing in the beginning. And then, of course, like, I think we filmed like a few things, and then I went to SIA and showcased a trailer. And
Cool.
Then I got support from the industry, and we were able to hire filmers.
You were crushing it at that point too as a rider, right? Like you were, winning Women's Part of the Year, and you were just at the top of the women's game completely. And then you started filming while you were doing that.
I had a lot of success in the competition world in rail jams and a little bit of slope style.
Yeah.
But I wasn't completely super strong in slope style, and the mountains were just tugging on my heartstrings to kind of leave the competition world. So in 2010, it was like my last competition, I think, was the X Games. Mm-hmm. And my head wasn't in it. I wasn't like stoked to be there, put a run down, be a part of it. I just was like, I would rather be in the mountains. I don't care about this whole situation or vibe.
Cool.
And so I just made that decision for myself and went into the backcountry. And I would say I had a little bit of a low as far as support. Like, sponsors weren't really on board for that. And so I had to and understandably so, I had bought a sled, and I was probably, I didn't have that much experience in the backcountry. So I had to definitely build up my career again. And I was happy to do so. I would have done anything to follow that passion. So
seems like that's pretty much the trajectory that contest riders take. If you start winning contests, the first thing you think is okay, so can I start filming a part in the backcountry yet? And the best stuff's not at the contests. That's pressure. And so did you have any experience at contests during that time where they started building stuff that was just so humongous
The X Games.
Yeah, the X Games. It was like they
Or
took
like
it way too far.
the ice or air. Did you ever hear about that contest?
Nuh-uh.
I mean, there was like a solid big air scene for a bit when I was like on my way out of contest world. And the big airs were these massive things in stadiums. Like,
Yeah.
I guess like the Shaun White big airs that they do now or whatever. But there's this thing called the ice or air. They built this ramp with a jump and they had a gap in between. There was nothing there. They ended up putting like a net.
Oh God.
And I just remember looking at the compression. Like I walked up however many stories and I was just like, I don't think I can handle the compression of this jump. And I think it's sketchy. And I'm glad I listened to myself because Bev V ended up hiking up. I think she took my spot and she ended up landing in the middle of the two in the net.
Oh my God.
It was the sketchiest thing ever. And then Kaya Tursky ended up spinning her way. Like from the lip, you couldn't see that the snow narrowed. It didn't go all the way from end to end. So I think she spun off the jump and got really hurt off that jump.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't that cool.
Yeah.
So
there was a point when I was in snowboarding that riders were like, if you build it bigger, we can do better tricks. You know, so they're saying like, hey, build it a little bit bigger. This is like kind of too small.
Yeah, the infrastructure had to catch up for sure. It was like, maybe, you know, I could have used my engineering degree for the physics of the, you know, dimensions of the jump. Maybe I should have put in some 2 cents there. It didn't match up at all.
Yeah. So then there was a point after that where the television networks, right? Like, because that's who came up with X Games. They're like, okay, we'll make it bigger. Bigger. And then as a rider, if you're saying something, other riders can be like, I would hit that. She's just washed. Like, hey, totally. I'm going to hit it. What's she talking about? But really, rider safety, like we saw at the Olympics, like they've got like a hierarchy. Okay, well, you know what? It's super windy. Let's just run the women's. It's like, ooh, that's really gross. Yeah.
But I think it's poor decision making when, I mean, a situation like that, there's so much at stake and then they just put it on. I don't know the whole situation of how it went down, but it seems like there was a miscommunication between the athletes, the teams, the TV stations. Yeah. So I don't know what to say about that.
I think it's really important. Like back in the beginning of snowboarding, there was a rider advocacy component to contests that was like, I remember they were pushing for it to be 30%, right? Like, so the 30% rider input, 30% event coordinator input, and then like 30% sponsor input. Like, what do we want to see? What do we want to build? And what do we want to ride? And that seemed to make sense, but a lot of riders were just showing up back in those days, right? Smoking weed, drinking beer, being like, whatever, build something cool. And then
totally. But I do remember at the X Games, we had these like pretty long riders meetings, and Gunny, who's at the head of Snowpark Technologies, always did a pretty good job of listening to what the riders.
I want to have him on the show. Yeah. Chris Gunnarsson.
He has a lot of history. I'm sure there's a lot of stories.
Totally.
Has to tell.
So then you move from competitions into the backcountry, which is a great move, obviously. And then how long before that pays off? A couple of seasons?
Yeah, I feel like moved into the backcountry. A few years later, Hannah Beeman made a film called Intervals, and that was just more or less Robin Van Gin, Hannah, and myself going out as the three of us with a filmer. And we were kind of just like chipping away at like, you know, trying to be progressive and try to hit stuff without being scared shitless. And and it was fun. It was so like, we have such amazing terrain here in Whistler. It's just hard to not go out there. It's hard to not be out there all the time. It's like the best feeling in the world when you're out in the middle of nowhere, there's nobody around, and then you've got these like beautiful snow features. It looks like art. It's like, I mean, we have all the options in the world, and And we also, like the three of us have different riding styles, and we are able to be together as a crew and push ourselves in our whatever we wanted to ride.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it's like the best thing ever. And I think, yeah, just a few years of eating shit and trying things and then realizing what your strengths are and like maybe listening to that inner guide or the inner compass. Like, I think it's important. I would see Hannah hit these huge jumps and I'm like, oh, I should hit that. I don't really want to hit that big jump. And so, I mean, I would try to hit some of the stuff that she was hitting. And then I was like, I'm just not into this at all. I want to hit like cliffs and lines. And so knowing that was like a big step forward for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, we were all there to support each other in doing what we wanted to do.
Yeah. There's a theme that Ben Billock brought up. I talked to him like yesterday or the night before, and he was saying progression versus evolution, right? As a snowboarder, progression is what gets you kind of into it, right? Like when you're watching videos and you're getting to the edge of progression is really kind of important, especially if you're a sponsored rider. But the evolution of yourself as a rider actually can include stuff that's not just straight progression. I think that's cool.
Yeah. And in the backcountry, it's like there's so much education to be had. It's just a constant plethora of knowledge that you're gaining every single time you go out. And I think the backcountry has taught me a lot of things about, moving forward and learning more and giving back and being patient. And I think like it's you're constantly evolving as a rider out there.
Yeah.
Like maybe when I first got out there, I was looking for like the tree jibs and like anything. I was trying to take, my street background to the backcountry. And now I go out there, I've gained so much confidence over the years that I want to be at the top of the mountain riding things and in my own way. But yeah, it's definitely an evolution. I would agree with that sentiment.
Were you pulled in the direction of director when you start making the full moon films as opposed to, pushing yourself on your riding, or how did you balance that out? Because I mean, I get it. You're going to obviously, strive to have the best part you can in your own film, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with making a film that's just exhausting. Like when
totally, I would consider my position with Full Moon not really director. I directed the idea of the story once we were in the editing room, but when I'm in the backcountry, it was more of, I was just an enabler, like, organize the filmer, make sure they're here. As a crew, we all had equal say in what we wanted to do that day. So I was pretty cognizant of, you don't want to have one person get all the footage and be in this movie that's like super unbalanced. So my focus was making sure that everybody had some good film time. Right. And I probably took a step back for sure in my writing, but I just felt like I had a bigger project than myself. And that was the most important thing to me at the time. So. Right.
And that's actually good for your sponsors too, because again, in the evolution thing, you're building who you are as a person. So that's great. I think that worked out.
And it feels just as good to have that feeling when you give back to a crew or a team, like probably feels even a little bit better than doing something for yourself. So interesting.
Yeah. I guess you don't seem like the crazy egomaniac that's all about yourself.
No, I think the whole draw to snowboarding for me since day one was to be with friends all the time. Like when I was in high school, it was, I want to be hanging out with like the cool older boys and go out with them. Like it was, I never saw it as this, when I saw it with soccer, being the best soccer player I could be, I thought it was an escape from reality and a way to have some creativity. And that was it. So I never have the intention to be like, obviously I think when you go out there as an athlete and you're a professional athlete, you want to be the best you can, but that's not the driver of every day.
Right.
It's more just creative vibes and good vibes with your crew.
Sick.
I don't know.
You mentioned Natasha Zurich.
Yeah.
What other pioneer women did you have on the? It's funny that she's a pioneer, but yeah, she is totally.
Yeah, she totally is. She's so good.
Yeah.
Natasha Zurich, Jana Mayan. I went on a trip with Jana Mayan, Natasha Zurich, and Flor Marxer 1 year. And
Rad.
It was epic. Just the level of snowboarding was like boom, boom, boom every day.
Sick.
Yeah, it was sick. But Tara Dakitis, Barrett Christie, Shannon Dunn, Tina Bassich.
Wow.
Tina Bassich is like, we interviewed her for Full Moon, and she had so many awesome stories to share about the history of snowboarding.
Yeah.
Lately we've had Marie France and Timmy are living with Jeff and I this winter, and we've had TB2, TB3, TB4s playing. I just really, that's the best. And I just really appreciate all the different wild styles and the whole crew vibe. Like, it was
Noah's
cool.
parts are insane. Hey, like just the way Noah Selaznick chooses to go down a mountain.
As soon as you see him flying through the air, you know it's him. He just had this distinct style.
So distinct. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Tom Burt. He is gnarly. Like now that I'm getting into like riding lines a lot more, now looking back at that old footage and how big the pioneers went, like they were crushing it.
Agreed. Yeah. That was big, rider driven big, right? Like nobody was saying, okay, go hit a bigger cliff or whatever. They were just like, sometimes they're on like boards that are like 210 centimeters long. Like, okay, well, I'm going to hit a 120-foot cliff today. What?
And they were posy. Like,
yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Meeting and talking with those guys, they're different people for sure. You know, because they didn't make a lot of money from it. A lot of them.
No.
Tom Burt's a great one to bring up because it was like freestyle time, right? And he was like a big mountain rider. For me, it got lost in the background. But yeah, you go back and look now, you're like, he's riding so fast, so smooth. His line selection is so gnarly.
Yeah.
Wow.
And all the exposure they were riding over.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I was talking to Bonnie Zellers during, we did this Snowboarder magazine talk, and she was saying that their goal back in the day was that they wanted to bring climbing, the climbing aspect to snowboarding. And so, they were like little mountain goats trying to get into like, you know, they had the skills to bring the climbing aspect into snowboarding and back then, and it was so cool. And I feel like it kind of got lost in the whole freestyle movement. Yeah. But I think it's also coming back a little bit. Just when you watch Jeremy Jones, more contemporary big mountain riders. Yeah. It's cool to see.
Yeah, the freestyle component. You could see it come in with Johan. Like all of a sudden, Johan's there in TB5, and you're like, oh, there it is. There's like an actual time where it changes. Like he's connected the two things. They don't have to be separate anymore. It's not just big mountain or not just freestyle.
Totally.
That's nuts.
It's nuts. And then like moving forward, like I think one of my favorite movies in the last few years was Dark Matter.
Oh yeah.
Seeing Elliot, seeing like the creative vibe of filmmaking, with like the highest echelon of snowboarding, merging those two, and then putting Travis Rice and Elias Elhart together, like it was so sick. Yeah,
it's nuts. I really liked Depth Perception because it kind of veered off in a different direction for him, right? Like, because there's That's It, That's All, Art of Flight, The Fourth Phase. Those are all kind of the same movie.
Yeah, totally.
And then all of a sudden, Depth Perception is like, wait, it's kind of the same thing as going from a contest rider to a backcountry rider, but like, okay, so now we're not even going to do the freestyle stuff in here. We're just going to ride pillow lines. We're just going to ride gnarly, awesome lines. And I love that they threw Robin in that movie just like with no Like she doesn't have a separate section to be a woman. She's just like riding with the guys and
Totally. And she killed it.
killed
And
it.
it was so awesome. Yeah, I loved that they brought the nature. It was like the tree was talking to them the whole time. And I do really appreciate yeah, I would say like creative filmmaking and storylines. Like it just makes it exciting to watch rather than just like your standard snowboard snow porn film.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, that's it. It's funny that you say standard too, because like I'm thinking about Dave and Mike Hatchett. They were both climbers, and Dave Hatchett still now makes a lot of his money by doing bouldering guides down in Lake Tahoe. Like so, like yeah.
I saw there is a movie Real Rock coming out with Lonnie Koch.
Oh wow!
Remember old pro snowboarder?
Yeah.
Climber.
Yeah.
His the legendary climber. I'm looking forward to seeing that film.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
Do you climb yourself, or is this something now you're starting to?
No, I think I'm just talking about it because I want to get into some spicy lines, and I need to learn the skills.
Yeah, you live in the right spot. I had a friend bring me to Murin Park, which is just outside of Squamish, and there's some easy lines to learn to climb there. And
yeah, Jeff and I, we usually spend our summers in, surfing, but this year we stayed in Whistler and we did start climbing a bit.
Oh, sick! Fun.
Yeah,
you didn't go to Yuki this year?
We went a few times, maybe twice, but just we didn't spend that much time there at all. We were in Whistler, so we were like picking up mountain biking, climbing.
That's so nuts.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a move. If you're a pro snowboarder, you're going to want to start surfing. It seems like
100%. It's the natural evolution of being a snowboarder.
Mm-hmm.
It can be impactful, but
of course,
it has such a soulful feeling.
Craig Kelly mentioned that it's the opposite because when your bindings are attached to your feet, you're kind of pulling the board around, whereas with a surfboard, you're pushing the board. He always wanted to balance stuff, so he's like getting into the balance of, if you're pulling your board with the snowboard, you're pushing with the surfboard. He was just a real, snowboard philosopher, and he surfed a lot.
He didn't have to say much, but everything he said had a lot of impact.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah. You haven't mentioned Victoria. Victoria was on your crew too.
Oh, huge inspiration. Yeah, she's the goddess of our sport.
She's completely vanished. I want to have her on the show, and I've spoken with her boyfriend. I tried to reach out to her recently. Yep.
Didn't hear back, but because we were watching the TB4s, and she had some sick shots, and I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about her for a few years, wondering where she is, and I should probably just tell her that I appreciated, like send her a positive message, and then in hopes of maybe seeing if she wants to come ride. But no, I haven't heard back from her. So.
Yeah, because you guys went riding at Baldface, right? So the full moon at Baldface, a couple of connections there. My cousin is Stephen Metcalf, who you must know.
Oh, from K2?
Yeah. Oh. I don't think he's at K2 anymore. He's at Powder Core. But yeah, he was a marketing guy at K2, and he was on that trip with you guys. It was so weird. I was seeing your guys' photos of it, and then he's in my feed too, and he's there too. I'm like, how are you at that event? It seemed like it would have been
Victoria wasn't there.
Oh, she didn't go to that one. No. Shannon was there.
No, Tina was there. Cersei was there.
Oh, nice.
Garrett.
Nice.
The whole crew: Jamie, Marie, Annie, Robin, Hannah, Helen. We invited. Tara had just had a kid. She couldn't make it.
Yeah.
We sent quite a few invites out, but it was just, it's hard when you have a family or.
Of course. Things. It looked like the most fun women's gathering in snowboarding that had happened up till that point, probably since
oh my
too.
God. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so fun. And it was so awesome that the Pensieros hosted us. That was really generous of them. And they hosted us for a week, and we just filmed together, and we shared stories, and we interviewed each other, and We partied a little bit. We dressed up in costumes. It's just what you do when you go to one of those places.
Yeah. Yeah. Lodge life.
Well, yeah, lodge life is good.
Unreal. What have been your favorite parts of your career? What are your career highlights that really stand out for you?
For sure, I would say the worldly friendships, for sure. Hands down, that is like the most special thing that I'll always have after this career is done or whatever. And Full Moon was a really great time to connect with all the other women in the sport. So I would say that has been one of the most fulfilling projects. And I don't know, just like, I think having the opportunity now to like kind of steer my career in whatever direction I like. And I'm just kind of deciding to ride more lines and maybe find some lines with purpose and trying to figure out how to try to find spots on Google Earth and like try to get to them. I think like the unknown part of snowboarding and the scary side, it still gets me. Like I'm still like very enticed by the energy of the sport, I guess, like, but like put in a progression sort of way. Like I feel like there's still a lot of room to progress out there for sure.
That's so sick.
But
you know, Tom Burt is still on North Face, isn't he? You guys should do a North Face project where you're like, okay, hey, I want to go out in the backcountry with the OG climbing.
I think it's Jim Zellers that's on North Face still.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jim and Bonnie Zellers are, you know, they were always there on those trips because Tom and Jim were like really, really great friends.
They all hung out together.
Yeah.
He mentioned that Bonnie was actually the first female signed to the North Face, the first female snowboarder.
So sick.
Yeah, so sick. And yeah, I love how this brand specifically like holds on to their legends and keeps everybody involved. And there's a lot of room for connecting with other athletes. Like I just went on a trip with Christina Lucy and Brett Harrington, and Christina Lucy is like probably one of the most badass skier mountaineers right now.
Rad.
Same with Brett Harrington. And I just went on a split board trip with them, tried to keep up with them. It was really hard.
Oh, that's so sick. Yeah, I can remember the North Face personally, like, you know, as a snowboarder, it was like we wanted sessions. We wanted skateboard specific, snowboard specific stuff. And slowly over time, you just could not deny that the North Face supported their athletes. I mean, in the beginning, the North Face just made better stuff. So it was like super good quality stuff. But you're like, whatever. I'm getting new crap every year and the styles change and I don't want to look like a skier out there. But now the North Face is like super sick stuff. Plus, they've got these heritage riders that have been riding their stuff for so long. They turned out to be that amazing company that is headed up by somebody who gets it, obviously.
Totally. They have a lot of history in snowboarding, and then not until recently they added 5 women onto their snowboard team. It's just not the token girl on the team, which a lot of the brands have. So I thought that was really rad. Have you seen Facets?
I feel like I have. Yeah. It just came out, right?
Just came out. Yeah. It's mainly an introduction to the women's snowboard team.
Sweet.
Yeah. It's rad to have an opportunity where you actually are getting invited to the trips and you're going to have equal, even actually when I rode with Jake Blavelt and Victor Delarue for Defiance, that was something that was spoken about, was that the North Face was like, you know, Leanne, you're going to have like equal say on lines. You're going to have an equal segment to the men. And I thought that was like really respectable because that never happens.
Yeah. Is that a first? It's close.
There's a few women that have had opportunities like that, where like Marie France, where the brands get behind her and they're like, look, you are in this. But then there's a lot of times when you would think riders that do deserve a space to showcase their stuff gets cut. Like Jess Kimura, it's happened to all of us where we'll film all year and then like the brand decides to just, oh, didn't see that footage, didn't put it in there. You know, it's a constant evolution and a strive for better.
Yeah, it's moving in the right direction at least, right? And I don't want to say that dismissively. It's like companies really need to be held to task right now, like especially for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like,
and it's not just gender based anymore. Right. It's diversity. It's having inclusivity for everybody. So I think it's super important. And maybe snowboarding has been guilty in the past for being, not as inclusive as it could be. For
I
sure.
think so. I think all sports have. Like the idea that 1 in 10 people is gay, and we've had our first gay professional snowboarders like in the last year. That's super weird, right? It's just weird.
It is, but it was also so good at the same time.
Oh yeah,
the support from everybody, and it should just be like that.
Yeah, totally.
It just needed somebody to like open that door for that community.
That would have been scary for those guys for sure.
I know.
Yeah.
That's off to all those riders.
Yeah, those athletes are really inspiring. It makes me happy, because I'm old now, and I've got a daughter who's 20 and a son who's 17, and my daughter's gay, and I'm super proud of her. And I don't think that defines anything about her. I think that's just like
no, love is love. It doesn't matter.
Love is love, exactly.
Yeah. It's just the same feeling. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah. Yeah,
I had a pretty heavy conversation with my friend yesterday, and I think what it came down to at the end was that whenever he's filling out something, right? Because he's from Southeast Asia, he's always the other. Like, so it says white and then black, and then there's just other. And he's like, oh, I always got to do the other thing. And I'm like, exactly. That's the thing that defines it in a nutshell, is that I've never had to be the other. I'm always the first one. So when you're the first one, there's like just a little hit of confidence every time that you, in every situation, every time, it's like the default. And then everything else is other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's up to us to like break that
completely.
And we need to create opportunity and just acknowledge our bias that's ingrained in our culture. And it was a big awakening this year, I think, for the whole world with what is happening. And it's just, I think it was awesome for the world to realize that we are so unbalanced. And we need to, in nature, amongst each other, like it's just everything right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to that baseline of just like having love and being kind to one another, it's how we've got to move forward.
Yeah, and shaking it up if you're the comfortable person like myself, who's always getting to tick that first box and realizing, hey, you know what? That is a privilege. You hold a privileged position, and it actually is holding other people back. Like, it's not okay to just pay lip service to it and say, yeah, we've got to do something. No. You got to also find those biases inside yourself, because they're hidden pretty good.
Yeah, I did that. There was like the Harvard bias study that you could do.
I've done them. I did all of them, and I'm biased in every single way. It sucks.
I know. It's terrible, but it's also like, it's good to be aware of our bias and
yes,
try to be self-aware when we're in our daily lives, and trying to make a big difference in somebody else's life is important.
You're really inspiring in that I believe you 100% when you talk about creating the Full Moon Project to showcase women athletes. It wasn't just like a marketing ploy to get more Leanne Pelosi footage out there in the world. That's pretty rad.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really rad.
That's really nice of you, because that was the goal. It was just to like shine light on backcountry snowboarding. And if I look back now, I feel like we could have had even more diversity in that crew. We were just mainly all from here.
Yeah.
I would love to create more opportunity in the future for others, for sure.
Yeah. Have you seen that footage of the Japanese girls in The Uninvited too?
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, man.
It's so good.
Yeah, so
I'm
good.
so blown away by the fact that Jess was able to find these women and make a film with like just congregating all the footage, and like, how did she know these women were out there? Like, I'm sure the energy was just aligning and attracting itself to her, but I'm so impressed that she was able to get such a badass crew together.
Totally.
That snowboarding was amazing, for sure.
Yeah, mind blowing.
Yeah.
I'm always out for the lookout for that footage where you're like, ooh, there's the gap is gone. The gap's gone in some of those shots. The gap isn't there, which is eventually it won't be there. Do you feel that? I feel like eventually the gap's got to go. It will go.
It will. It'll take some time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like in women's slope style, the gap is like,
I know.
Like seeing Anna Gasser and Jamie Anderson and Claudia Medlova, like all those girls that are just upping the ante, doing all the double corks and triple corks and whatnot. Like, they've only been doing that for a few years.
Right.
Just give it a few more years and then wait to see the next generation. And like Sky Brown, that little skateboarder girl that is like 12 or 13 or something. She's a surfer, skateboarder, probably going to be pro in both. Just like, I can't even believe what she does on her skateboard.
Yeah, it's
like,
sick.
Yeah, where the little boy is doing that, I don't know. Like, she seems like she is just a good skateboarder.
Yeah.
I think the future will hold that. It will be these little girls and boys riding together, and the ability levels will be pretty similar.
Yeah, if you look at gymnastics, it reached parity. Like, the women are better.
Yeah.
There's a little extra style there if you're a woman, a little less stiff. And with snowboarding, like, if you compare today's women snowboarders against 10 years ago men's pro snowboarders, they're better. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, well, the only difference that was keeping women down was not being invited. Yeah.
Lack of opportunity, 100%.
Yeah.
And not having role models.
Right. Exactly.
Like, I think the fastest way to grow participation in a sport is show that there's like someone to look up to.
Yeah.
And so I think like, I think for society in general, having more equality and diversity, it's like a helpful strategy to diversify leadership in the workplace, and it will carry through sport as well. It's important to have equality, and it's important for people to feel valued.
Yeah. Yeah. Leanne, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for doing the show. It's been really fun. I've admired your riding for a long time. You know, like if I'd see you at Grouse or see you at Whistler, it's like, oh, she's like local, but she's also like world famous in snowboarding. Sick, obviously. And it's been an honor to interview you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be on the FNRad podcast.
Oh, thanks. Awesome. Thanks, Leanne.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Maybe see you on the mountain.
You bet.
Okay, bye.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Leanne Pelosi. Leanne's currently working on a snowboarding movie project with the North Face and Ann Cleary, Ingrid Backstrom, Christina Lusty, and Hillary Nelson. Special thanks this week to Aaron Leland. Aaron's agreed to show some of us newbie sledders around the Whistler backcountry. Can't wait for that. Give Aaron a follow on his Instagram account. He's got insane photos up there. And also check out intuitionliners.com if you've got any foot pain. And be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.